All right, guys, welcome to this week's edition of SC and Scrappy. First, I want to say thank you to everyone who sent me a direct message, an email, a whatever to tell me I missed you, or the big boards, they weren't right at all.
You were getting clapped this weekend. You were
Yeah,
getting clapped.
yeah, and that's okay. You know what? I can totally
Yeah, I
appreciate
love it.
that. I can appreciate it. You know what? A lot of people who are interested in kind of where they stand and that sort of thing. It was kind of funny. I wanted to gather all the all the comments and post them so we could take them one by one, but that would just take way too long. So, in retrospect, now that you've had a week to kind of think about it, is there anything that somebody said that you go, they have a point?
Well, no. Very simply, no.
All
But
right.
no, I mean, it's just so like there were certain kids that would send me results that would happen at random local tournaments, and it's like, well, we can't know everything. We just can't. So
Right.
I'd say, obviously hindsight 2020, there's a couple that I probably would have went and edited now
Well,
knowing, but I mean,
and the truth is, I mean, you were different than me. Like this was my list, and you gave
yeah.
feedback on my list, and I kind of put them in a particular order. And I kind of I mean, I know that people are like freestyle for Greco. I mean, why? I'm like, well, because Fargo. I mean, you were there. You walk around the floor. There was every Division 1 coach that was watching all these matches. I mean,
You
if
name
you want
them,
to be
they were
recruited,
there.
you
You
probably
name them,
should
they
be
were there.
there,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
No,
All right.
absolutely. Totally agree.
So the one part or the one thing that was really tough for me was the freshmen. And the freshmen are hard. And you know what? I totally get kind of different orders and that sort of thing. Georgia Grappler just posted their, I think, top 20 freshmen for
I think
Georgia.
it was 20.
Pretty interesting. They have several of the ones that we had. James Severs, Ronan was on there. I'm trying to think of some of the other. John Darius
Phillips.
Williams, Phillips is on
Phillips.
there. Yeah. So there were a couple that were on there, but they also had a few others that, I mean, let's be honest. Bringer from South Effingham, Brexton Bell, from Calvary Day, maybe I think. Um,
Yeah.
you
Cohen
know,
Hargrove is a big one that I should have remembered at going. You want
yeah,
to talk about some social circle is bringing in a class, bro.
They are, and honestly, we only gave the top 20 or 25 for the entire Southeast, so it wasn't going to be more than a few Georgia kids anyway.
Yeah.
So, all right, so
Yeah.
on their list, if you looked at their list, somebody we didn't include that you would make a case for being included.
So honestly, when it comes to the Georgia freshmen that I know of,
Mm-hmm.
they kind of hit the nail on the head. I mean, like you look at a kid that I would have talked about, Julian Camacho, going into Collins Hill. He's on the list. So I'll give that. I think for the ones that I know of, yeah, that was pretty bang on.
All right, all right. So that leads us to the girls' big boards. And just like the boys, the girls, man, the 2027 crew, little hard to kind of know who those girls are. You coach
Just a wee
girls,
bit.
so
Yeah.
maybe you have a better idea than I do.
There's a couple on that 2027 list that I at very least am familiar with.
All right. So let's why don't we start with 2027? And why don't
Yep.
you give me the top five and then I'll kind of give you kind of my ideas.
All right. Well, running down your top five, at number five, out of Baylor, Tennessee, it's Caroline Hilton. Number four, out of First Baptist in Florida, Haley Motor. Delilah Queen out of Knoxville Halls, Tennessee. She rolls in at number three. The Sarah Wilson, I believe. I
Yeah.
could be wrong. That's one of those where I'm probably going to get torn apart. She's out of Lincoln Park Academy, and your number one girl in the big board class of 2027 here on as of August 21st is Juliana Eldridge out of Wetumpka, Alabama. I do believe I said that correctly.
You did say Wetumpka, Alabama correctly.
So that was one of the ones that always scares me, saying Wetumpka.
This is this is a situation where we don't have a lot of information. So we are really kind of flying blind a little bit. I want to go ahead and first say Riley Sturgill, who comes in at number 6, teammate of Caroline Hilton, could be number 5. Definitely Ella Hughes, who I think is the little sister of Millie Hughes up at Jefferson.
Yep. Correct.
Comes in at number 7. Lexi Dean out of Tennessee. There are a lot of individuals, and the challenge in this situation is that for Florida, like Wilson, she was a state placer last year as an 8th grader. Motor was a state runner-up 2 years ago in Florida as a 7th grader. So it's a little bit easier to kind of put them in pecking orders. It's a little more difficult when, like, say the Georgia girls, say an Ella Hughes or some of the others, because their only wrestling has been kind of in the off season.
Yeah, it hasn't been an actual high school competition. And I will say, for the entire state of Georgia, there's someone I want to mention because I feel like it's everybody's worst nightmare. You look down at number 18, Brianna Higgins out of Camden County. Ladies and gentlemen, do not let Camden County do what they did to the men's division. I remember years ago, there was a girl from Camden County who was a hammer. Cannot remember her name for the life of me. A friend of mine, too. So, in fact, when this goes out, I'm probably going to get torn apart, and she's probably going to DM me like, yo, you're an idiot. Can't remember the name for the life of me, but whatever. And that was the only girl I really remember from Camden that, was saucy and bang. And, when she would wrestle against guys, would get some wins. We're now seeing Camden have a couple of girls, and it's like, uh-oh, this is what nobody wanted. This is the problem with Camden County, is we all have to fear for our lives that they're going to take that over, too.
Well, and one of the things that stood out to me is, and you brought up Brianna Higgins, is little sister. Caroline Hilton, little sister. Haley Motor, little sister.
Little sister.
You've got some that have been around the sport a little bit, and whether they have big sisters or big brothers, they come into a freshman year like our freshman boys, having some knowledge. They have had some competitions, and that really makes a big difference. I will say Juliana Eldridge out of Wetumpka, if you haven't seen her wrestle, she is super good, and
Monster.
Yeah, and it'll be, I don't know kind of what her trajectory will be, and I don't know kind of where she'll end up. And this list, I want to say, is really fluid. We'll learn a lot more over the next several months, and this might change a lot. But you can check it out, SC Wrestle Plus. We have the rest of the list. It's pretty good. All right, sophomores, man.
Absolutely. We move on to the class of 2026. Top 10, we're going to go through. Number 10, out of North Forsyth, Team Fierce and Scrappy member, Artemis Eaton, shout out. Number 9, at Oakley, Florida, Jayla Harrison. Number 8, out of Lumpkin County, Team Fierce and Scrappy member, Nora Garbazovas, by way of Team Alpha. Number 7, it's Camden Elliott out of Gulf Breeze, Florida. Number 6, Audrey Lewandowski, I believe is how you say that last name, out of Montgomery Central, Tennessee. Number 5, Delilah Batansis out of Lee County, Georgia. Number 4, Elle Kaufman out of the Lovett School here in Georgia. Number 3, another Oakleaf, Florida product, Kaylani Barrientos. Number 2, out of West Creek, Tennessee, Ireland Lauren. And number 1, out of Lumpkin County, Georgia, Team Fierce and Scrappy member, Greta Garbazovas, also by way of Team Alpha.
All right, so I went 35 deep in the class of 2026. Yep. It would have been easy, I think, to make an argument for Ireland Lauren to be number 1, because Greta did not get a chance to wrestle in Fargo. And to be fair to Greta, because she's been hurt, and she probably won't be on the mat very much this fall. She could fall. She could fall out of that number one spot simply because others have been competing. You know what I mean?
I absolutely think she can in this. And again, I said Team Fierce and Scrap member because I wanted to be completely transparent with everybody of who I know and who I work with. I mean, look, Greta is a super stud, and I've made that very clear my opinions of her. But I mean, yeah, if she, the injury that she has is there are question marks. When I talk to her and her family, I get everything from we'll be back in early January to we'll be back basically at area individual. So we really don't know. Obviously, wishing nothing but the best for her. But man, Ireland Lauren wrestled her tail off up at Fargo.
Right.
Like,
And so did Keilani Barrientos. I mean,
I was gonna, yeah, the two girls who were non-ranked and went from not in the rankings to top 5. And you had to, you look a little lower down list. Elle Hoffman lost a heartbreaker in the Bloods.
mm-hmm.
Jayla Harrison is another stud, and it's interesting seeing Oakleaf have 2 there. And I really do like Audrey Lewandowski. I've seen a couple of her matches. I've watched her before. She's a hammer. Yeah, and this is one of those where I'll say I think you got the top 10 pretty bang on there, Jason. I give you that.
Well, and Lewandowski is again the little sister of an absolute hammer. She moved to Tennessee. She is certainly someone to watch.
Yep.
Looking through the top 10, I think pretty solid group. Number 11 is Senna Grassman from Cleveland, Tennessee, who had a really good Fargo as well. Kiara Rosenmarkel from Seaforth, North Carolina, comes in at number 12. I really like her. I think she's got an opportunity to be in a top 10. I just haven't seen her wrestle as much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
one girl I'll say a little bit lower down the list that I'm a super big fan of, and this actually isn't a Georgia girl, even though like I see another Team Fierce and Scrappy member in Madison Cooley, but a girl that I've taught some of her matches and I am a super big fan of is Sophie Boo out of Palm Harbor. I really like her, and I think that she has a super high ceiling, and as well, right below her, Mackenzie Schultz out of Enterprise. I think both of them, we could see them make some real progression over here in the next season, especially because of the programs they come from.
Yeah, well, and actually, I'm glad you brought up. I think it's Bowie, but I'm glad you brought up her because her big sister wrestles up in Pennsylvania, wrestled for Team Florida, won a national title over Zeo Estrada of South Carolina.
Yep.
Would certainly be part of this list, but we don't. I mean, even though she wrestled for Team Florida, she wrestles during the season out of state in the state of Pennsylvania. So just like on the men's side with Joe Seeley or Jax Forrest or Lincoln Fletchikowski or any of them, look, if you wrestle in the high school season out of the Southeast, we don't include you. It's just the way that works.
Yeah.
All right, so let's jump. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that is a good distinction to be clear about.
All right, so let's go with the 2025 group, who to me, just like the men, are superb. So can you give me a countdown?
I mean, all right, in at number 10 from North Oconee, Georgia, it's Vera Spencer. Number 9 out of Knoxville Halls, Tennessee, Aaliyah Whaley. I think is how you say that first name. Again, ladies and gentlemen, if it's the first time you ever hear me say a name and I butcher it, just someone yell at me in the comments or in the DMs and I'll fix it. Number 8, Lena Johansson out of Weaver, Alabama. Number 7, Cheyenne Cruz out of Middleburg, Florida. Number 6, Enterprise out of Alabama's own Evelyn Holmes-Smith. Number 5, Grace Leota out of Hernando down in Florida. Number 4, Milana Borelli out of Venice, Florida. Number 3, you'll see a pattern here, ladies and gentlemen, in this section of the list. Number 3 out of North Miami, it's Maya Bethel. Coming in at number 2, out of Lake Highland Prep, it's Mary Manis. And number 1, was there a question here? New world champion out of Cleveland, Tennessee, Piper Fowler, who, quick note, me and Josh and her, we couldn't get figured out for the interview. That is a shame because I wanted to interview them both. So, but a shout out to them. But yeah, man, I mean, this is probably the first one where I can make a case for one girl to be a couple spots higher. But I think Evelyn Holmes Smith is a superstar in the making. So, and she didn't have the result at Fargo she probably wanted, so I get it. But I probably would have had her back up in that 4-3-5 range. I would have had her a couple spots higher, but I get the reasoning behind it. I'll admit it.
Yeah, so actually let's take that on a little bit, because at number one, you got a world champion and Fargo champion, right?
Like,
Number two, Mary Manis, who was a Fargo champion. Number three, Maya Bethel, who was a Fargo champion. Then you had Milana Borelli, who was a junior All-American. Grace Leota, who was a junior All-American. Evelyn Holmes Smith, who was a 16U All-American. Cheyenne Cruz, who was a junior All-American. So your top seven spots were all All-Americans in Fargo.
Yep.
I mean, so
they're all studs. So that's where I'm like, Evelyn, to me, it's more of an eye test thing for me. I really like her style. I like the way she gets after it. And I'm a really big fan of Cheyenne Cruz too. But this is, I guess, where maybe heavyweight bias, where you and I talked about with Jacob Levy in the men's side, even though I am a super big fan of Cheyenne Cruz and the way she wrestles. I mean, I understand your reasoning for having it the way it is, but man, if this list was mine, Holmes honestly would probably have stayed in that 4 spot, honestly.
in the 4 spot. Okay. Above
Probably would
Borelli.
stay there. If I'm being honest.
Okay. All right. Anybody down further on the list that kind of stood out to you that you might elevate? Maybe not to the top 10. It might be hard to get into the top 10. But might move on.
I mean, you look even down to spot 26, Caitlin Fields out of Cedartown. I think she's got a really high ceiling. At another Floridian, Kendall Bibla, younger sister of Brielle. I think Kendall has got a super high ceiling. She's a frame that she can do a lot with, if she puts on some muscle. Obviously, Ollie Kate Wineland out of White County. That's a Georgia girl. I don't want to stay only in Georgia, but maybe a little further down. You look at a girl like an Ellie Underwood, who I got to watch at
Did you see her where did you go? You went.
Yeah, I'm losing my mind. Backyard brawl.
Right.
I don't know why that completely escaped me. But
Tennessee
big
girl.
fan of her. She's a stud. And Evelyn Ochoa out of Rossview is also a stud. But it's like you said, that top 10 is super, super tough to get into. Like that's
I agree. And we went 60 deep for the 2025 women. And again, like the men, I feel really pretty confident about the top 10. Then 11 to 20, I feel really pretty confident. And then we get a little bit further down, and I'm like, you could probably make a case for this person being slightly above this person.
Tough.
And you're like, maybe this person should be a little bit, few spots higher. But it's a tough thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, look, it's not gonna disagree with you. So,
all right. So 2024 women go 70 deep, and I think I'm surprising everybody with the number one, but maybe I'm not. Why don't you get the top 10?
I'll tell you, you're not surprising me.
Okay. All right. Good. I don't think it's a surprise, but I think other people
I don't think so. But again, we'll get there when we get there. Number 10, Annalise Merrillet out of Ashley Ridge, South Carolina. Number 9 out of Bob Jones, Alabama, Harley Thomas. Number 8, Kaylee Sudreth, I believe, out of Lake Norman. Did I say that last name? Sudreth?
That is correct.
Sudreth?
Yes.
Okay. Number 7, Jasmine Jenkins Bay out of Columbus, Georgia. Number 6, Woodruff, South Carolina's June Welch. Number 5, out of Coral Park, Florida, Sophia Delgado. Number 4, Genevieve Ann out of Kennesaw Mountain. Number 3, May Prado out of Lassiter, Georgia. Number 2, it's Zayo Estrada out of Hilton Head, South Carolina. And your new number 1, Gabby Tedesco, who, in my opinion, that's not a surprise. I completely agree with that, actually.
All right. So I want to go ahead and make sure that I mention this right now. And that when I was pulling this together, there was rumors about Val Solorio whether she would be in Florida this year, whether she would be back in Pennsylvania this year or
We both
not.
heard the same. So
I believe that she is now enrolled at Mosley in Florida. I could be wrong. I'm trying to verify some of that. If she is, she slots in somewhere in the top 10. Where does she go?
man, I'll put her deuces. I'll put her
You put
deuces.
her number 2?
The way Gabby wrestled at Fargo, I can't knock her. Just can't. I can't bring myself to do it. I can't.
I just
Like
was wondering whether Val is below Zayo or is above above Zayo. That's my only question, really. That's where I saw.
Probably above Zayo. Probably above Zayo.
All right. Okay. So
now it's below this on this list where I actually do have some questions.
All right. Before we get to that, I want to make sure I mention to this, and that is this is going out on Tuesday. If for some reason I get a verification before I actually post this on Wednesday that Val is there, I will slide her in somewhere and move everybody down one. Just so everybody knows.
And he's going to insert a box right here that says she is in the school. Like right here, Jason. See where my hands are? That's where you're going to put the box.
All right. I'll try to do it. Go ahead.
So at 16 for me, Diamond Young, I think you can make a case for her being a couple spots higher, especially when you look at a Georgia girl who I love, Taylor Shizer, injured, hasn't wrestled up at 13.
Isn't it Sheezer? Isn't it Sheezer?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. I thought you told me it was Sheezer. So okay.
No, it's Sheezer. You're right. It's Sheezer. You are correct. Okay. So I spoke to her at State. But Diamond Young has put together a really, really good offseason. So I would maybe take a nod there. Then you look a little bit down below. Number 29, Jamie Hurl out of Mount Airy, North Carolina. That chick is a hammer. And she dropped. And she has not wrestled because of an injury. And I feel where she dropped down from 25. And my argument is the ones that jumped her, I don't feel like that they put in. I don't think it's a Diamond Young situation where I don't think they put in the same type of resume where they would jump her. And then the only one for me, Blitzy Soto down at 34. I feel like she's got to get a little bit more of love as she's the only Georgia girl and not to win over Genevieve Vaughn in the past 2-3 years. But beside that, the rest of the list I think is spot on, and I think there's a couple of girls that you're giving like a girl like Ariana Bacon. I feel like a lot of people would take this opportunity and not give her the love that she deserves because that girl is a hammer. And maybe didn't AA at Fargo, but that girl is deserved of top 30 status and maybe even a case for higher, but 26 is probably a good spot for her.
Well, so you brought up Hurl, and the reason there are a couple of reasons why she actually moved down. Not really that has a whole lot to do with kind of her necessarily, but number one was Brooke Zach, who was in the same state of North Carolina. I left off of the last big board because she was hurt before the state tournament. I totally forgot about her. Definitely should be included as above her. And then the last one is Abby DiCincenzo, who only lost to her teammate from Florida in the blood round in Fargo. So she came in unranked and moved up. So I'm just saying. No, I'm not saying. I get where you're coming from with Hurl. I'm just saying that those two of those people who were unranked moved in above her.
That's fair. Okay. I'm showing some love, but I get it. And G Shenzo, by the way, is a hammer. Don't no one misunderstand what I was saying there about Stewart and all them. That's not I was just making a point about Jamie. But yeah, makes sense. I got you.
No, I'm with you. And this is where it's really interesting to me because while some people have made a point on the board, on the guys' big board, that the NCAAs are folk style, and we shouldn't give as much freestyle weight to freestyle and everything else. The opposite is true here, in that at college level, they're all wrestling freestyle, and so should we, I don't even know if we should even be paying attention to much folk style. If you don't wrestle freestyle, that can be a tough transition if you've never wrestled freestyle before and you're used to folk style.
I make this argument out with teammate. The only style where specialization I think really plays a role into it is Greco-Roman.
I agree.
That's the only style where you see a stark difference between who's the best in Greco and who's the best in folk and free. Hey, I want everybody to take a peek at something. Go look at your best guys in folk style. What are they winning in the off season? That's all I gotta say. That's all I gotta say. I don't gonna say anything else. And I'm right. And I'm right. Like that's
You're
sorry.
100% right.
Actually, I'm not sorry. Never mind. Why would I ever say that?
Well, I mean, if you're wrong, it's okay. All right, let's move on.
Yeah, no. If I'm wrong, I say it, but I'm never wrong. I'm like the oracle. I am Dr. Manhattan from Watchmen. I'm never wrong.
All right, so we're gonna finish this episode with something that I think is super cool that the state of Tennessee is doing. Tennessee USA
Yep.
Wrestling. If you have not paid attention to their Instagram account over the last, I don't know, probably 2 weeks or so, they have been dropping graphics.
It was about 2-3 weeks.
They've been dropping graphics of the invitation for who's number one Tennessee. Now, I also want to mention there has been, I don't remember what the count is, but they've been dropping who's number one for the girls in Tennessee as well. Okay, but it wasn't Tennessee USA Wrestling. And as I understand
I can't remember who it is.
They're the same day, but not in the same location.
From what I was told, because I spoke to like Diamond Young, who's competing in it, Team Fat and Scrappy member. And the basic gist was it was a thing where they couldn't agree on certain aspects of the event, so they just decided to hold them separately. At least that's what I have been told.
Why would we do that?
I agree with you. I think they should be together, but again, I'm telling you what I got told.
No, I understand.
From what I'm also
I don't
being
understand
told,
why doing it separately.
From what I understand, there is still the possibility of them being held together. Like they're trying to figure out could they do it together.
Well, if you haven't watched Instagram and the Tennessee accounts, several girls matchups for Tennessee feature many of the big borders we just talked about, right?
Yep.
Against one another. And certainly on the boys' side, the matchups, man, they're good. And we're going to get to breaking down the who's number one for team for Tennessee when the event comes around. So we're not going to talk about it today.
No.
But just so everybody knows, I think it's in Cleveland, Tennessee, third weekend in September. Is that right?
I do believe the third weekend, yes.
Okay. All right. So that prompted Lucas and I to get into a little bit of a back and forth about if other states were doing this, who should be part of their who's number one? And because Lucas has his Georgia bias, we're going to start there. And maybe we're going to go to Florida and Alabama in the future. Is that?
I'm in, but
Okay.
You guys know me. Whenever I get an opportunity to play Dana White and get to make the matchups, I'm going to do that. So, Strick's number one for this. I took guys at their last event. So there's some of them that the last they've probably wrestled in the state tournament and their weight could be vastly different. My answer to you, if you say your weight is wrong, kick rocks. This is a thought experiment meant for fun.
That's
Enjoy
right.
it.
And that's all this is that this isn't you saying this is number one versus number two in terms of this is where their weight is right now. This is your best guess. And if you were making matchups and you were putting a card together, this is what your card would look like.
Yeah. And again, this is one of the things where my preseason rankings are going to come out next week. The weights are going to be very wrong. I know that. Like, we don't know. But, so we are going to kick off with the first thing I wanted to do is there was one weight when I looked at Georgia, I couldn't pick one matchup. So we will be having a mini tournament. So the curtain jerker of the card, if you will, if we're talking professional wrestling, 175 pounds, 4-man super tournament. The first matchup of the night, you'll have Dominic Bambinelli out of Mill Creek, and he'll go up against Tyler Secoy of Columbus, Georgia. These two split their matches at Freestyle and Greco State this past year. They've battled before, and they will wrestle each other in the first round of this 4-man bracket. in the second semifinal, you will have Latrell Schaefer of Veterans go up against Tree Thomas of Jefferson. Can we just take a second? That's a 4-man bracket at generally the same weight area in the state of Georgia. My Lord.
That's a good way to start a card.
Oh my goodness. Are you kidding me? Like those would be two amazing matches to get the crowd riled up. And then we move in to our actual official who's number one matchups. And yes, I put them in order of the matchups that I'm most interested to see.
So before we get to it, so anybody who has not watched who's number one for by Flow, so the winners of the 175-pound matchups go to the main event.
You see, you stole my thunder. I was going to introduce the main event when we got there, but I mean, yeah.
But they will go to the main event. Okay, I'm
dude
sorry.
Sunk my battleship. But whatever.
All right, so who's our first one? What weight?
We move into we are going to 150 pounds for our third match of the night, and a really interesting matchup for me. Part of South Paulding, it's Ryan Seymour, and out of Walton High School, it's Emil Nekula. And why this matchup is so intriguing to me is both of these two don't have the same type of necessarily hype that maybe other guys in the state do. Nekula obviously does on the Greco side of things, but in folk style, they're both not seen necessarily in the same way some of these guys are. You talk about national rankings and whatnot. So I think that this match would be really, really interesting to see.
All right, your fourth match is what weight?
Fourth match, we go to 113 pounds. We will see 7A state champion at 106 pounds this past season, Bradley Patterson out of Camden County, as he will take on Locust Grove's Mason Moody.
Okay.
That one to me is a complete matchup of opposite styles. And that would be one that match, we're only in match 4, and that one's almost worth the price of admission by itself, ladies and gentlemen.
Did Patterson and Moody wrestle at your duels this summer?
I don't believe so. I believe Moody was up at 20, I think.
Okay. All right.
I could be mistaken.
And to be fair, Moody may not be at 13, but it doesn't matter. This is where we're rolling with it. And so our fifth match is intriguing, man. It's a good match.
It is intriguing. And you know, if this was a professional wrestling card, you always got to have one match in the middle of the undercard. Like when you're not at the midway point of the event. We go up to 190 pounds. You get Commerce's Hope Poe Hogan and Camden County's Ryder Wilder. This match is fireworks.
Yeah,
in every facet.
I agree.
Styles, personalities, they're both freak athletes.
Have they ever wrestled? Do we know?
I don't think they have. Because you gotta remember, Hope was little for a while. And then when he got older and bigger, by that point, he was in high school and Ryder was still in middle school. So I don't think they would have competed before.
All right. So match number 6.
We go to 165 pounds. You get Chris Mance out of Lovett, and he will go one-on-one with Toby Maddox of Tryon. That one to me has all the makings of a blast double slugfest by both of them.
My question to you before we get to almost the halfway point is, where are we hosting this? Because I'll tell you, from what I heard, the Lovett Central Carroll duel was absolutely fantastic to watch last year with the state duels. Maybe Lovett hosts something like this? What would you think?
So what's funny is you say that I picked 4 to 5 venues around the state, and I was going to talk about that at the end, but I'll throw it in here. So if you want to go in that kind of metro area, I think there's 2 really fantastic gyms and facilities. Lovett was one of them, and the other is the Buford Arena. I think the atmosphere that you could put in Buford would be incredible. Go a little bit further south, I look at a school like Troup County, which if you've never been, I went there for the Backyard Brawl. It's a fantastic little area. And, you know, you go in the big gym. It's a big gym. I think you could do it there. Another one in that kind of mid-south vicinity of the state is Ola. We've seen them time and time again host great tournaments.
Well, and
And
that's where
now
Super 32 will be in
yep,
earlier entry tournament
qualifier, yep.
next weekend, right?
And then for the South, the best one that I've been to that I've seen is Toombs County is a fantastic gym. If you've never been to Toombs County's gym, ladies and gentlemen, for a 2A school, it's a big old gym. And I feel like that those five were the ones that immediately jumped out to me as best locations. And I tried to go, you notice I had two in the metro, two kind of in the middle, Toombs is far south. I tried to, because you know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you go to Columbus Ironworks if you want to do a venue, you go to Columbus. I hear from everything I've heard, Brunswick's gym is really good. I haven't been personally. But yeah, so those were the couple of locations I thought of.
All right.
But we move on to bout
Yeah,
number 7 of
back
the
to number
night.
7.
We go to 215 pounds. Dade County's Landon Williams. He would take on Anthony Lowe of Brunswick. And my lord, that is a sleeper pick for the match of the night. That's a sleeper pick. For when you look at the styles of those two guys, I got to have Lowe on my team at my event. I obviously watched Landon Williams wrestle at state this past year.
We all
And
did.
obviously
Yeah.
it's some, yeah. Well, I got ran up on by people because of him. Thanks, Landon. All seriously, love Landon. Don't know we take that the wrong way for God's sakes, especially anyways. But yeah, I think that match would be a lot of fun and two different personalities. Too Low, kind of a bit more, reserved, quiet. Williams, not. So I very much like the idea of that matchup. We go to number 8. Colquitt County's Logan Paradise, Gavin Pope of Buford. This one to me is fascinating because we saw Pope have some struggles early this year, got himself a state title. Logan Paradise, we didn't see in Georgia this year. He was wrestling and winning college opens. And now we saw him at Fargo make me look like $1,000,000. I almost feel like for Pope, it's a fantastic match to maybe try to get some respect back on your name. And for Paradise, it's a match you've got to be careful with because we've seen Pope for years be able to wrestle and hang in with some of the best guys in the state when the lights are on brightest. So I feel like that match has a lot of potential there
Yeah,
to be a barn burner.
and I don't know that we've ever seen the two of them compete, even though we're in the same state and everything else, and they've kind of crossed paths and 7A and everything else. I don't know that they've ever.
That was something I actually tried to do. Is I tried to not. There's only one matchup that I know of that is a bit of already a rivalry, and we'll get there when we get there.
All right.
We moved
Number.
about 157 pounds. Flowery Branch's Seth Larson, St. Francis's Cade Parent. That match to me it is. I almost feel like for Parent, it's that kind of prove it match. I feel like he's wanted with some of these Georgia guys because we've seen him get really, really close to knocking off some really, really good Georgia kids, but it have really close matches. Now you get arguably one of the best in Seth Larson. I feel like it would be really interesting to see those two get at it.
Well, and the thing to kind of tip your cap to Cade Parent a little bit about, I mean, I know this isn't a Greco match, but in Fargo, he went toe to toe. Now he ended up getting beat by Joel Adams, but
Yeah.
man, a world team member, Fargo champion, world champion a couple of years ago, Joel Adams, Cade Parent has upped his game. So,
Oh, absolutely.
all right, number 10.
We'll go to 120 pounds. Mill Creek's Antonio Mills will take on Braden Mitchell, a Social Circle. That one to me it's almost the tale of a big school and a small school. You got Braden Mitchell, who is arguably over the past 2 years one of the most dominant wrestlers in 1A. You get Antonio Mills, this hot shot freshman who comes in, wins himself a 7A state championship, and now we get him heads up on each other. I think that one would be a lot of fun.
All right, number 11.
Number 11, this one for me has very easily become one of my favorite rivalries in all of Georgia. At 106 pounds, we would see Gabe Swan of Central Carroll go up against Buford's DJ Clark. It's almost like they are each other's antithesis, but in a very respectful manner, because they both are friends with each other, but they continue to run into each other and continue to have classic matches. They had a really, really good match at Super 2 qualifier last season. I feel like it's a match as old as time that we're just going to always see at tournaments. They're going to be wrestling veterans division against each other at the lowest weight class, of course, and still run into each other.
Although I think DJ might be bigger now. Gabe will always be pretty small, but I think DJ might be a 13-pounder.
When I last saw DJ, he didn't look that big. So I was like, he might actually be able to make 6 again, or 9 if you gave him +3.
All right, so moving to 12, we've got 126 pounds. Tanner Spalding, Woodward Academy, Roman Bilardo, Jefferson. That's a pretty good match.
That's a hell of a match right there. That is one that I feel like there's so many matches in Georgia that we just haven't got to see yet that are possible dream matches. I think that's one of them. When you look at the styles of both them and the way that they wrestle and the way they approach a match, I feel like they're almost not directly opposed to one another in that way, but I feel like just their approach is so dissimilar. Where you got Bilardo, who is a bit more high risk, willing to fling stuff, or Spalding, on the other hand, is in your face 24/7, in the trenches, and super technically sound. I would love to see that matchup.
Now, number 13, I thought, I don't know if it's this way or this way, but I thought this would be your finals match. I thought this would be your main event.
You thought this would be, and it almost was. These last 3 matches, and this 175-pound super final was obviously going to be the last one.
Yeah,
but
it was obviously. But
these 3 last ones here, man, it was tough. It was really, and what it really came down to was, what did I think was going to produce the best matches for the fans? And when I did it in that way, this is the way it comes out. And we, at bout 13, 285 pounds, Jacob Levia Carrollton and Christian Bell of Lovett. I feel like that these 2 kids have wrestled each other so much, and they both work with Clemens. I feel like that there's a possibility that this one would almost, I don't want to say be boring, but they know each other so well.
Well, and that is a thing, right? That is a thing. Like, you get so familiar with somebody else, it's sometimes hard to open somebody up, and get them to kind of respond.
Exactly.
They've seen what you do.
That was my thing about it.
Yeah. Number 14.
In your co-main event of the evening.
Well,
Jake Traps.
Co-main event, right?
Well, I'm calling it co-main event of the actual card. Obviously, you have the super bout at the end, but
all right.
Jake Craps of Cass. Now, I know what's going to be said. If Cooper Hilton can represent the city of Boom Ranch in Tennessee's who's number 1, then Craps could represent Roundtree City Wrestling Club. I don't care. He's in this card. He's one of the best in Georgia, without question.
He's one of the best.
He will go up against, obviously, and he will go up against Honey Badger, Dallas Russell out of Jefferson. This is supposed to be contested at 138 pounds. There's a possibility both are 132 pounds, and there's a possibility both these guys are 145 right now. So this might be one where we just kind of get them on the scale and be like, be close to each other. Get close.
Well, I think Jake is supposed to wrestle 26, and I'm pretty sure Dallas is much bigger. But you know what? It still would be a fun match to watch. Again, it's one of those things
where we haven't seen Dallas wrestle, so I don't know what he's really at right now. And I'm not going to be that guy to start texting people, hey, I'm writing up a fantasy wrestling card. How much are you weighing right now? No, I'm just going to do it. I'll deal with it later. And then,
last one, co-main event.
In your main event of the normal card, arguably the best match you can make in Georgia, if you're just looking at names and weights, 138 pounds, Buford's Drew Gorman and Mill Creek's Blueberry Stifler.
Yep.
This could be
national champ,
area,
right?
Fargo. This could be an area final, a sectional final, and a state final. Can you imagine if we get blessed to see this match 3 times in the same postseason?
Yeah, that would be crazy. And this is actually one of the few matches on your card that we could actually see in Macon, because so many of who you described are different classifications, so we wouldn't see them.
Yeah, I'm looking back. Craps and Russell Pot. Well, no, because Craps is not going to cast, so that's not. Uh, I'm just like briefly looking. I don't think any others are in the same classification. Actually,
Right.
yeah, no, none of them. I had to. I just wanted to take a peeksy peek, but no, none of them are. So this is the only one that could also be for a state championship, and man. I don't know if there's a better match you can make in Georgia. I really don't. Like, I'm trying to think of one. And like, unless you start really doing some weight differences and like really moving guys around, I think this is the best one you got. And then obviously, after that, whoever wins in bouts 1 and 2, they would meet in a super final to decide who's number one at 175 pounds.
All right. That is fantastic. I think those are great matchups. I really want to know what other people think. Did we miss somebody? Is there somebody else you should put in there? Is there somebody you'd like to
I will
see? Or
say
is there another
there were
matchup you'd like to see? You know?
there were a lot of guys that so the way I basically did it was I wrote each weight down and I looked at the guys that competed well at Fargo, competed well at other postseason events, and guys that had a lot of acumen coming into this upcoming season. And then I looked at, each weight had basically 3 or 4 guys written down. And I looked at it and I said, okay, who are realistically the guys that should wrestle for who's number one? And the only weight that I really didn't see a clear two or there was one weight where there was a clear three and I picked two, but it was 175. I couldn't justify leaving out Thomas Schaefer, Bambi, or Sequoia. Like I tried to justify it and I just couldn't. So we had to do that there.
Well, I
But
like the idea of the semifinal. I mean, I think that actually is what who's number one does. So there's no reason not to.
no, and honestly, there's even 1 or 2 more weights that I feel like you could have made the case to do that. Like you look at, if I'm going to just spitball here, I mean, you look at weights like 190 or 190 where you could have had an argument for another 2 of them. 120 guys like Walker, Prosen, and Murray were on my list and then
Yeah.
got knocked out. 106 and 13, I mean, guys that didn't get in. Ebold, McElliott, Persons, Camp, Doherty. So there were options, obviously, to do
Well,
this.
at 38,
But
you can make a case for Danforth and a few others. So
yeah,
yeah.
I think Danforth was the one that I really was looking at, and I was like, okay, can I justify doing another 4? And then he just got kind of outside looking in. But
I
either
think that's a
way,
good card. I think it's a good card. All right. So
I think so too.
as we wrap this week's show up, I want you to think about Florida, Alabama. I don't know South Carolina as well. Tennessee's already doing theirs. North Carolina. If we were able to pull this together, that would be a pretty cool thing to have a who's number one card. When would this take place for you?
So if it was up to me, you would do it probably when Tennessee's doing it. I think doing it in end of September is really the best bet. Because you give kids time to rest for 32. You do it during the school year. I think that it makes sense to do it this way.
All right, guys. Well, next week, I hope to talk to Coach Billy Maldonado about the Georgia Wrestling
Awesome.
Coaches Association convention or their thing that's going on in a few weeks. You are going to drop your preseason or no?
Yeah, I think we'll be good to go. There's still 1 or 2 more things with specifically the team rankings. There's a couple classification, ladies and gentlemen, that these team rankings might give me an aneurysm. There's a couple, and when we get there, we'll get there. But yeah, I think we'll be good to go for next week. Let me say this: I will at very least be putting out the team rankings. I'm going to be honest. I don't know if individual rankings will be ready by next week. There are still so many things that have to be looked at and things that have been taken into account that I can't promise those by then.
All right, that sounds good to me. All right, final thoughts?
Listen, man, it's been a lot of fun. Shout out Emmanuel University. I moved in. Obviously, you guys could see a different setup.
Yeah, you got some stuff in the back behind your head.
Yeah, we're and more to come, but I really love it here, man. Coach Killian and the crew, Gunnar Gardson, Coach Collins, Griff, all the crew, the wrestlers here are awesome. and I'm just happy to be back in a real legit college wrestling room, and we have a locker room, guys. I'm excited, we have some really cool things. Bro, on campus there's a bowling alley, son. Are you kidding me? A bowling alley on campus?
Can
No,
you
I'm
can you
pumped, man. That's
bowl?
awesome.
Can you bowl?
Yes. Bro, my best game at Kent was a 248.
Really?
Yes, I'm so
All right.
serious.
Okay. All
You
right. All
remember
right.
at Kent, there was like a bowling alley 0.2 miles away from where I lived. So I used to walk there and would bowl for 3 hours a night every few days.
All right. So let's end it with this. If you weren't a wrestler, what would be your next best sport?
Oh. Well, I
Would it
can't
be
swim, right? So I would
bowling?
drown.
Bowling?
Bowling's a solid pick. I was also all state in football in youth and middle school.